And thank you all so much for joining us today on this session. I'm sure we've met you all before, but I am Zoe and this is Jamie. Many of you, anyway, will recognise from very much being part of the Champions programme. And just want to welcome you all today and just a very quick overview of what we are covering today. We speak to you and fellow champions in lots of different organisations all the time. And we are always asked questions and always thinking about how we can help networks really be transformative, helpful. And so we've put together this very quick half-hour session just to help you really make the most of the program that you've got with us and, some recommendations from us. So we're going to be looking at really the building of the foundation for success for you, keeping your network visible and engaged, making the most of your tools and resources, and some of the common challenges we hear in the questions that we ask, and hopefully what helps. So Jamie and I are going to be interacting over the session, and hopefully we're going to have time for questions from you at the end as well. So Jamie, over to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Zoe. And hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. So, in terms of what we're hearing from our Champions program, so across our sessions, a few themes come up repeatedly from maintaining momentum after launch and keeping champions engaged over time to setting boundaries and protecting champions' well-being. And we know every organization approaches champions slightly differently with different roles and expectations and even job titles, from allies to advocates to champions. But there are some consistent patterns in what works well, and this is exactly what we'll be exploring today. So, just a quick recap of the role champions can play. So, we know that champions often sit in the space between formal support through policies and benefits and also everyday conversations at work. They can ultimately help to normalize talking about mental well-being, make support feel more accessible, and ultimately really create that sense of connection and community across teams.
So, what we see, the strongest networks tend to have a few key elements in place from the very start. They're visible across the organization, people understand what the role involves, and just as importantly, what it doesn't do, and it's easy for others to access support when they need it. And we find that when these principles are in place, everything else seems to become a lot easier. And I think we're going to start by looking at each of those points in a little bit more detail.
So, the first of these is making your network visible. So, for a network to really be used regularly, employees must know it exists and be reminded of it regularly. So, think to yourself, how often does this actually happen across your organization? For example, visibility can be bolstered through mentions at town hall meetings, senior leadership meetings, or mentions, or even better, sponsorship, or simply by becoming a part of everyday team conversations and internal communications. And it can also show up in more informal ways too, such as being referenced where appropriate in line manager check-ins, or on key cultural awareness days, or in team huddles as well. So the best way really to think about visibility is around building consistency over time. The more regularly and more often that people see and hear about the network, the more likely they are to remember it's there when they need it.
I think something really important is about being clear on the role and setting expectations and boundaries early. I think it's really important that champions, both prospective champions and existing champions, understand clearly what the role involves. So, setting clear expectations, including what champions are not there to do, I think really builds confidence and avoids any confusion, particularly around boundaries. And I'd be interested to know, maybe something we can speak about later, but how often do you do this? Do you create job descriptions or for the roles? Do you give those out up front? Do your champions agree to T's and C's? Do you have safeguarding procedures in place? I think this is often where things can become a bit blurred, if it's not addressed early, there can be problems. So, without clarity, champions feel unsure of their role or take on more than they should, and employees may expect a level of support that isn't appropriate, which can even be potentially dangerous. So, being explicit from the start helps to protect champions whilst also continuing to build mental health literacy and access to both internal and external resources and support.
So the next point is around making it easy to access support. So the easier it is for someone to reach a champion, the more likely they are to do so. So simple things like having a shared inbox that all champions have access to. So for example, champions at and then your organization name.com. Regular drop-in sessions, either virtually or in person, or clear signposting can all make a real difference in network accessibility. You might also want to consider having a list of champions with pictures for each and a few lines about where they're based and why they became a champion, and a few lines about their life as well that might help to resonate with employees and who then might choose a particular champion when looking for support because of their life experience. If people aren't sure who to contact, how to reach them, or whether it's appropriate to do so, they'll be much less likely to take that first step. So, making access simple, visible, and low effort really helps the network to feel open and available for all employees.
So I guess we've looked so far about getting these kind of foundations in place. And so now we focus more on how to keep the network active and engaged over time. So this is where having that right structure, the rhythm and support is absolutely crucial. So in this next section, we're going to look at how the Champions Programme and supporting resources are designed to give you practical ways to maintain momentum and ongoing support and conversation.
So, the first of these is just a quick recap of our Champions calendar. So, as you can see, we've already had two of these sessions take place. We've had the webinar on the 25th of February, Empathy Has No I, the skill of empathetic listening. And we also had our surgery on the 11th of March. And the surgeries are our drop-in style, clinical sessions run by our clinical experts where champions have that psychologically safe space to receive any support that they might be looking for, whether that be in terms of an employee that they're supporting around topics such as anxiety or depression, or it could be around areas in which the champions themselves need support too. So, this coming week, on Wednesday, we have our next webinar, How to Support Someone in Mental Health Crisis. We also have another surgery on the 23rd of June. We have our next webinar on the 18th of September, 16th of September, Understanding Grief and Loss, a surgery on the 21st of October, and finally on the 18th of November, our final webinar of the year, the Champions Stress Toolkit, Managing Stress in Yourself and Others, and concluding with our final surgery of the year on the 9th of December as well. So we handle all the logistical information around communication, but you have the opportunity to share information around these sessions internally and really reinforce that the sessions are for all champions to join and to learn more from as well. We also have our Champions Hub as well. Now, our Champions Hub really brings together everything in one place. It includes our past webinar recordings, it includes worksheets on specific topics such as grief and divorce and relationship breakdown, and then also includes anonymized surgery notes as well. The surgeries aren't recorded because we keep them as psychologically safe, anonymized spaces, but we do have anonymized notes from these that are uploaded to the hub. It's worth champions really revisiting the hub regularly so they can make the most of what's available to them, and also consider looking at the hub yourself as the champions lead to know which resources are housed on there and where you might want to signpost champions to specifically as well. And how it all works in practice. So, in terms of process, we've really designed this to be as simple as possible. So, most of you know this already, but just to quickly recap, after champions register for our hub, which is predominantly done during the live onboarding sessions, and we send them all diary invitations for the respective sessions, along with regular reminders over email too. The aim really from our side is to make it as easy as possible for champions to take part without any extra admin.
So, we also really believe in creating peer-to-peer connection and support. So, outside of the formal webinars and surgeries, it's also important to think about how champions can support one another more organically throughout the year, or just an impromptu that they need to answer, have a question answered, maybe about someone they're supporting there and then, and it's a bit too long a time to wait until the surgery. So, creating peer-to-peer spaces such as team channels, Slack channels, whatever you might use for quick questions, idea sharing, and sort of informal conversations, they can really help build a stronger sense of community and shared support across the network. Obviously, our surgeries are a huge building block for that, but this is just an idea, an additional idea for you, for the people actually working on the ground. So also, just also to make you aware of the supporting resources that we have available for you. So we have a wide range of ready-made resources, posters and social cards to promote upcoming sessions internally. We really want to try and send you as least information as possible. Don't want to bombard your inbox because absolutely we are taking care of all of this for you from our side. But if you do want additional ways to promote the Champions program, please do let us know and we can send you things that visuals for you to send out. And also, again, as Jamie said on the hub, don't forget to check out, we've got a best practice guide for practical advice on building and running a successful network. We've got some exciting developments coming for 2027 as well, which I just wanted to talk to you about. We are constantly asking for feedback on all the sessions that we do for the champions, and we are looking at enhancing the program even more next year, creating more peer-to-peer support. In terms of data, we're going to be doing regular champion pulse checks so you really know how your champions are feeling. We are going to be enhancing the surgeries and also providing supplementary champions toolkits after each webinar. I should also just say very quickly that obviously Jamie and I are using the terminology of champions, as we always say, and I just want to ensure that you know that on every session we hold, we constantly talk about our terminology as champions, but of course, many of you don't use the word champions and you use mental health allies, mental health first aiders. I want you to know that the whole program is very inclusive, but just for the sake of one word, we use the word champion. So I just think that's really important to let you know that we're constantly saying that to all the people that are on the program. So we said at the beginning that we often get a lot of questions about how to run champions networks, what to do, how to do things a bit differently. So we're sort of going to go through an FAQ with you of some of the frequently asked questions that we get. And then after that, by all means, very much open for us all together to chat, for you to ask more questions, tell us what's working with you. But for now, these are the FAQs that we get.
Brilliant. So the first of these is, how do we keep momentum going over time? So it's very common for momentum to dip after the initial launch of a Champions Network, and keeping a regular rhythm of activity and maintaining visibility can really make a big difference in sustaining engagement from your champions. A lot of the tips that Zoe and I have shared today, such as visibility and clear roles, through to consistent communication and use of resources, is really designed to tap into exactly this, giving the network a structure that supports ongoing engagement. But it's also important to manage your own expectations and remember that your champions are great people who have stepped up to become volunteers. So please be fair on them and also on yourselves too. You can't expect 100% engagement 100% of the time.
So another question that we get asked is about when you have a global champions program. I appreciate it's not for everyone, but many of the organizations that we work with are global. And, there's often a need to balance that central activity with local relevant. Time zones, culture, and language all play a really important role. So a flexible approach tends to work best. So this might mean offering sessions at different times. As you know, our Champions program does that, but sharing resources that can be adapted locally or giving champions the flexibility to bring things to life in a way that works for their region. I think we've seen that a consistent central structure can really help provide direction, but while local ownership really helps make it feel relevant and accessible. So we run, as I mentioned, we run the champion sessions twice daily, but it's really important that everybody knows that, and that everybody in your relevant time zones gets the right links, and we do our very best to do that. We do recommend that if you are doing external training and giving your champion some kind of certification, it really does work well if you do train them locally rather than centrally. We have had good feedback on that.
So the next FAQ that we've included here is how can I support the mental well-being of champions? I think it's really important to recognize the emotional side of the role. So setting clear boundaries and reinforcing that the champions are there to listen and to signpost only, and ensuring that they feel supported themselves is absolutely key. And without this, it's really easy for champions to take on more than they should or feel responsibility for those situations that are beyond their control. So creating that clarity and support helps to protect them and ensure that the network also remains viable and sustainable too. But remember that you can also direct champions to our quarterly surgeries as well. These are the clinical expert run sessions that we spoke about earlier in this webinar, and they're really designed to be those psychologically safe spaces to receive any support that they might be looking for. So please do direct them to those sessions as needed as well.
I think probably one of the most common questions we get is about what if some champions aren't active? And I think, I'll say this out loud right here, right now. It's so normal for levels of engagement to vary across a champions network. This is, after all, a voluntary role. Not everyone will be active all the time, and this can be come in peaks and troughs depending on workload, especially. So I think it's really important not to expect consistent involvement from everyone. It can be more helpful to focus on just keeping engagement opportunities visible and making it easy for people to re-engage over time. It can be useful to track if a champion hasn't been active or engaged for a while, as you can consider speaking to them and seeing if there's someone else who might like to become a champion in their place. As mentioned just earlier, something around tracking people and who's regularly coming on and off the sessions will definitely be part of our champions program in 2027.
So, should we measure what champions are doing? So, this directly correlates with the question before, actually. So, tracking what champions are doing can be helpful, but it's important to keep the admin process manageable here. So, the aim really isn't to create that heavy reporting, but instead to build a clear overview of how the network is being used and where the engagement is happening. So, for instance, a light touch activity log could work really well. For example, keep track of the data that we share with you about attendance at sessions, alongside general engagement levels or conversations and signposting interactions that have taken place as well, where appropriate. And this can then help to give an overview of champions' activity, identify patterns, and support conversations around the impact of the network. One of the commonly asked questions that we get in the surgeries is how can we demonstrate the impact to senior leadership around the champions network? And having an activity log, a light touch activity log, but an activity log nonetheless, and can be exactly the perfect route to do so.
Absolutely. And following on from what Jamie said, that overall question of, how do we show impact? So those data points that Jamie was mentioning are really important. So, but a mix of data points and real examples. So that might include things like engagement with our sessions, use of the company EAP, or tangible feedback from employees, such as the log that Jamie was talking about, or looking at that peer-to-peer support, the Teams channel, the Slack channel, something like that. I'd actually be interested to know whether you ever talk about EAP engagement with your champions whenever you're with them, because essentially it's them that's signposting, or I mean, I know they're not the only people that are signposting, but they are signposting to the EAP. So I think it's really good for them to understand what engagement levels look like in the EAP, because they are responsible for that, which is a great thing. So alongside this, regular updates, again, as Jamie sort of said, to senior leaders can also help keep the network visible on all different levels, sharing what's happening, what's being used, and what's really making the difference to the lives of your employees. So that is just, I guess, a little snapshot from us. We wanted this to be quick and short, but just to give you some hopefully new ideas to engage, and if not new, to show that you're really doing a great job. And if you've been nodding away and saying, I do that tick, I do that tick, Well, brilliant. We're really pleased. We're constantly learning as well. So I guess from us really just to say in the chat box now, if anybody would like to ask any questions or would like to tell us something that's really worked for their network, or perhaps things that are challenging. If you would like to stay on and be part of this conversation, please use the chat box. It would be really great to hear from you. And if nobody's got anything to say, that's also fine. But just thought it would be a useful part. And what I'm actually going to do, just so I'm going to stop the recording so that, um, yeah.